What is going on, Rotogrinders? Dean here at Steen7904 if you want to get all technical. I mean, it is 4:15 on the East Coast, 1:15 on the West Coast, 3:15 Tennessee time. So, of course, that means it's time for the flagship show here at Rotogrinders. It's called Grinderslive. Joining me today, we got Chief Justice Will Priester, our first of two shows. Later on, we'll be talking Top Shots with Tambo. Later on, after lock, that'll be good times for sure. Between us, we're talking basketball. Baseball is going down between us. That is Stevie TPFL and the GOAT of GOATs, for real though. Dave Potts, cheese is good. He'll be free. Normally he's a premium guy. You want to read his premium articles. You guys don't have premium here at Rotogrinders. What are you doing with baseball season? The combination of cheese and Cardi, that's a 1-2. That's like Garrett Cole and whoever the Yankees are. Who's the second best pitcher on the Yankees? I don't know. Hey, Will, we're talking basketball. We excited?
Oh, I am excited. I'm also excited that, good old Mr. Ronald Acuna just sends one out of the park on the first pitch. Joe Budden at pump it up. Let's go.
That's your team.
Let's go Braves.
Did you play a little daytime DFS?
What's that?
Did you play a little DFS with Atlanta? I didn't.
Oh, no. I didn't do any early DFS for baseball because I knew I had this show. So anyway, didn't want to worry about that. But yeah, listen, this basketball slate, man, is ugly, and I love it. And,
yeah.
That's where I think we are on this slate, man. This isn't a pretty one right out of the gate, and I think it's because we have so much news in limbo. Don't want to take your shine. Dean, I mean, you're going to give us body parts, but they're all questionable body parts. So, matter of fact, I'm just going to stop talking right now, and let's talk about the possible body parts that aren't even in the bag, but they're in the bag. This is like 8 heads in a duffel bag. Let's go with that.
Is that like Christopher Walken and Joe Pesci? Are those the dudes?
David yes.
I remember that movie.
Yes, 8 heads in a duffle bag. Absolutely.
What a random movie reference out of nowhere.
Speaking of Joe Pesci, because I think we're gonna we talked about this pre-show. I feel the shenanigans.
Oh boy,
coming on right now. This is about movies. Have you seen The Irishman by any chance on Netflix?
Paint houses, yeah.
Yeah, Joe Pesci's in that movie. That was a good movie. I really enjoyed it. It ended a little bit more weird than I thought because you got De Niro just kind of sitting in this room by himself.
Spoilers? No.
Sorry, folks, my bad. No, I didn't watch the movie. But it is. Have you seen it? Sorry, have you seen the movie?
I have, but maybe some of our listeners have.
Correct. Okay.
There's a statute of limitations. You can tell the people that Bruce Willis was dead the whole time. Like it's been 25 years. You can say that, and we're not even saying exactly what movie it is. But it's been a while.
Yeah. But it's at any rate. Real good movie, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'll leave it there.
It's interesting because a lot of people thought it was too long, and I had a conversation with
somebody. It was very long. I mean, it was a long movie, but it was still a good movie.
But one of the problems is people are watching it on Netflix, and when you watch stuff on Netflix, you're distracted by watching baseball. You're on Twitter. You're texting your friend. You're talking to somebody in the room.
Oh, really? People do that when they watch Netflix? I had no idea.
That's the chill part, I think. I don't know.
Oh!
I think that's another part, actually. Do you want the body parts as far as who's in and who's out? It's actually
8 heads in a duffel bag. Let's go, Dean.
Cannot believe that's the movie. I have not seen that in so many years. All right, yeah, buckle up, get comfortable, and it's basketball. We're gonna do our best to be able to cover stuff and what if, and we have SBK from our projection team joining us later, and he'll give us the rundown. I'll ask him specifically about New Orleans. I presume we won't get information on that for a while. Zion is questionable with his thumb. Ingram's questionable with his toe. Is Na playing tonight? Nah. Oh,
I don't think he is. That's a nah.
That's what I was. Yes,
I know, Dean. That was a cosign nah.
Thank you for going along with me in the world's worst dad joke. Na is not playing this evening. That's Alexander Walker. Josh Hart's probably out for the season with his thumb. Kira Lewis, the rookie, is doubtful with his calf. They signed Isaiah Thomas. That's out there for the year 2021, which is cool. Good for Isaiah Thomas, but he was so much fun to watch. But Boogie, I love that those Kings.
And guess what? What's interesting, Dean, is Isaiah Thomas comes in the slate on FanDuel at a whopping $3,900. He does not come in at $3,500, giving him the $400 possible Isaiah Thomas starting or playing bump. Hey,
have you seen his DK price?
I have not.
He is 5.1K on DK.
This is going to be more fun than the slate. Name that price, D. As a matter of fact, we're just going to do Prices Right DFS today. Oh, how cool is that? 5,100. Sorry.
I get both showdowns with that one because I remember that was 5-1. All right, so Atlanta, John Collins is still out with his ankle. Hunter is probably out for the season. Reddish still out with his Achilles. So this is kind of a big one. This is more of a FanDuel specific, but Drummond with his toe, he's still ridiculously priced. Well, if he plays the actual minutes, he looked terrific in his first game, but presuming he starts, he's questionable right now with his toe.
Dean, what's Drummond's price? We're playing Prices Right. What's his price?
On FanDuel, it's 5.2.
Okay, 5,201.
You ever go down the rabbit hole on Twitter, on YouTube? Hey, let's say hello to YouTube. What up, YouTube? Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. We do appreciate that. Fire off your questions. We're going to dig into the slate momentarily after we knock out all the guys that aren't playing or potentially not playing tonight. Ask myself, ask Will, ask some questions regarding the slate. If you have some cash questions, we'll answer those. Tournament questions, broad questions, who we stacking, who we fading, all that good stuff. Let us know what site, if it's for tournaments, if it's for cash, yada, yada, yada. Devin is going to be compiling those there in the chat. He's also going to drop. We mentioned RG Premium. Get yourself RG Premium, $10 off your first month. A la carte, just one sport. If you want just basketball, if you want just baseball, you get $10 off. That way you get all the sports, $10 off, with the exception of NASCAR. You got to get that one by itself. Wesley Matthews has a next. He's questionable. Toronto, same deal as yesterday. FEV is OUT. He's not playing tonight. He's got a hip. Kyle Lowry's out with his foot. Hood is still out with his hip as well. Yusuf Nurkic's not playing tonight because he's got a knee. Indiana, that's a 7 o'clock game. I do like that. Only one 7 o'clock game tonight, which is welcomed. And hopefully we'll get clarity on that, if not on this show, later on before 7. You never know with the NBA. But Sabonis, he's got an ankle, so he's questionable. And Brogdon's got a hip, and he's questionable. That, of course, can change some things. Lamb, too. He's got a toe, so he's questionable. We're expecting Giannis to play tonight with his knee. Jamal Murray, this one broke today. He's questionable with his knee as well. Ibaka's still out for the Clippers. They signed Boogie Cousins. I missed that. I don't know when that happened, but good for them.
Oh, gosh.
When did that happen? I missed that news blurb.
This is over a week ago now.
How did I miss that? Okay.
Well, I mean, he hasn't been playing, so I get it. I mean, it was after the deadline, too, so I'm pretty sure it was after the trade deadline, so I can see how you would have missed that.
Anything else important that I have in my notes? Oh, Tristan Thompson's still out with COVID protocol reasons, as is Evan Fournier. We have Melton is out with his leg for Memphis, as is Winslow, who's got a thigh, and Clark is questionable with a calf. Daniel Tice is just not with a team for Chicago, and Temple is out with a hamstring. I'm not really sure I wrote that down. This time of year, you tell me, back end, front end, back-to-backs in general just freak me out, especially with certain teams. Back end, Toronto, back end, Detroit. And also they're facing Denver, which that's like the most horrific, the most difficult back-to-back to face. That travel, that elevation there in Denver. It is a quote-unquote revenge game for the Plum Dog and for Jeremy Grant for what it's worth. And Plumlee did rest yesterday for his revenge game today. Front end, Indiana, New Orleans, Atlanta, Boston, Memphis, Denver. So New Orleans and Indiana, is that the biggest thing we're monitoring right now? Those are the biggest situations that could really shift the slate. That's kind of my perception.
Yeah, I definitely think New Orleans, Indiana, because, this Brogdon news is going to be huge. I think, if Brogdon's out, that will most certainly funnel ownership to Karis LeVert and TJ McConnell, and possibly Jeremy Lamb as well, if Jeremy Lamb were to play. I totally get that. And then, in terms of, what people are, going to think about in terms of Sabonis as well, like how are they going to kind of react? So that's a big game for sure. That's for sure a big game. You mentioned the Raptors being on a back-to-back, and while the Raptors have been priced up, the bottom line is they still only have a few bodies. And I think, on a slate where there aren't a whole lot of guarantees, these guys are guaranteed their minutes. Now, that doesn't mean they're guaranteed production, as we've seen with, Pascal Siakam, who, I just never seem to get right. But I do think Pascal is a guy you go back to today. We've got him projected for, looks like 25% the last time I checked on FanDuel. I do want to refresh. Just want to make sure we're still kind of in that wheelhouse. But I do think Toronto, even with them being priced up, or some of them being priced up, I do think those guys are still valuable. Like, OG is $8K on FanDuel.
That's a big number.
And I think that's an awful price. but I think on this slate, you can get away with it. And what I mean is, it's just a purely contrarian play. Like, I don't think OG's a better play than Pascal in a vacuum. And I think that's your term, Dean. That's something you use. In a vacuum, Pascal Siakam is going to be a dirtier play or a more dusty play, but in a vacuum means better. I don't get it, but I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you. But Pascal Siakam is a better play. Gary Trent's priced up to 6,400.
He's clutch.
FanDuel, and so I do think there's still some value in Toronto. Malachi Flynn is 5,100. You missed him at 3,500 yesterday, and then that's also a team I wanted to cover on DK because I think it's very important. Malachi Flynn's 3,900 on DK. Yeah. Gary Trent is 6,200. Still think he's okay. Bembry's 3K. OG 7K. Siakam's 8.2. On DK, I gotta say, I think these guys are better plays than on FanDuel today for sure. And I think they're in play because of the minutes. This isn't as good of a spot as Washington yesterday, but with the lack of bodies, they don't need it to be as good of a spot. All the guys are still going to get their full complement of minutes. So, I do think Toronto is one of your safer teams on the slate, if you will, in terms of feeling confident about who's going to get their minutes. Another guy that's probably going to be, I would say, pretty contrarian on this slate, given the fact that he's been priced up now, is Clint Capella. Now, maybe on DK, you still get away with it at 86. Maybe he captures a little bit more ownership. But on FanDuel at 9,900, people aren't going to want to pay that price. But, I mean, he's been fantastic with no John Collins. Like, the minutes have been solidified. He's been playing pretty much 35 minutes if it's marginally close. And, if it's real tight, he might get up to 38. And I mean, he's been producing. So he's a guy that I think on this slate, just from a contrarian standpoint, especially if Drummond is in the lineup, if you pay up for Capella, you're going to automatically get different lineup construction. And that's probably on both sides, which I know Drummond is he's not as cheap, obviously, on DK, 6,500, but still paying $2K more to get Capella. And, fading Drummond on DK is still going to be, I think, a pretty good investment, considering the fact that we probably think Capella's going to have good minutes. And if these guys from New Orleans sit out again, he should just have a field day, even with Steven Adams playing.
People aren't going to play Capella on FanDuel. That price, like you said, 9.9. If Drummond plays, he's going to be pretty chalky, and we'll have that conversation. There's no Nurkic, and Cantor's down to 5.8, which is pretty solid price. Turner would see a bump if Sabonis is out, and Brogdon as well. Jokic's price is 10.6. I know, and we'll talk about it. Andy wrote about it today in his piece, and the addition of Gordon it's small sample size stuff, but we've seen his usage go down. We've seen his fantasy points per minute go down, and I mean, is that a correlation thing? Is that just happens in 4 games, and we'll see and kind of stay tuned. His rates are down as well. I think Boucher is really interesting still in tournaments. He got shellacked he got the shaft. Like he did not get the close. I don't think he played at all in the fourth quarter. If he did, it was just a minute or two in the beginning. They're bench started the roll. Bain started rolling and he closed. He's 3K on DK. And I think one or two of those guys is kind of sort of one of those two is probably going to get there, but like, I don't know if that's enough. If Baines puts up 20 points in this slate, is that enough for you in 3K? It just kind of sort of matters if you're going full star scrubs, if Giannis puts up 70, if Jokic puts up 70, then maybe that's the kind of stuff that helps you get there. We'll have that conversation. And then, we talked about Flynn yesterday and people kind of freaked out about him not starting, but also 7 stocks. Like that's not repeatable. That's not going to happen again. You don't need it. You don't need 7 stocks, but that's not going to happen again. Right. I don't know if you need him on FanDuel. I think he's a fine play. He's a good math play, but I think the FanDuel point guard's pretty good depth, especially if Brogdon does play. I like Trae Young at 8.5. Simmons at 7.4 is a pretty good price. I think. Well,
let me say this: if Brogdon is out, and I'm not always on the let's just do a swap for a swap train just to be different. I'm not always like that. But on this slate, if Flynn is out, TJ McConnell has equal upside here. I mean, they're essentially the same. And you got to think maybe because Flynn is the shiny new toy, McConnell doesn't get quite as much ownership, possibly. And I would probably side with McConnell in this spot.
That's a good segue because SBK from our projections team is here. And let's have him speak to that because I did see on our if then stuff here on the site We did, of course, outline Indiana. SBK, what's going on? We want to talk some Pacers. You excited?
Oh, very excited, man. Yeah, so we got two teams kind of that are just like very much up in the air with obviously Indiana and then New Orleans on the other side. So yeah, man, let's get into it.
Yeah. So all right. So let's say Sabonis and Brogdon are out. I know we have individually, if one is out, if the other one is out, what if they were both out? How interesting does that make Miles Turner? How interesting does that make TJ McConnell? Well, where do you see the minutes being delegated as far as the Indiana side?
So yeah, so we don't have like an if-then for both of them out. We have it for if either one of them sat.
Yeah.
So obviously, if the bonus is out, I think that probably is like the bigger general kind of aid to the rest of the team in terms of efficiency numbers. So assuming Brogdon plays, he'd be projected pretty high. You have a 32-minute projection, he'd be shade under 40 fantasy points. But obviously, LeVert and Miles Turner also become more interesting. TJ McConnell would kind of stay the same where we have him right now in the FM, but I think personally I'd project him to play a little bit more. So it's obviously it's mainly LeVert and Turner, kind of the two big winners. And then obviously if Brogdon were to sit, TJ McConnell steps on the radar. He's been a phenomenal per minute producer for the large majority of this year. And I think that should continue even with LeVert there. So that's kind of that situation. I think it's LeVert kind of benefits regardless. Miles Turner would benefit if Sabonis sits, and McConnell would benefit if Brogdon sits.
Yeah, that was the easier one, I think, of the two. The next one, New Orleans, we got Zion's questionable, Ingram's questionable. Nah, of course, already out, Hart done for the season. Lewis is doubtful. Isaiah Thomas was signed. He's available in theory. I believe he's available. I think he'll be in a uniform. What can you do? How can you help steer us as far as New Orleans? I know it's really, really difficult with all that stuff up in the air, but what are you seeing?
Yeah, can't do too much at this point. We do kind of have all those, or I guess Ingram and Zion. We generally kind of have them above 34 minutes, which is where they are at now, when they're kind of healthy and active. So we're down on them a little bit, but obviously we saw Lonzo come back in the last game, and they did not leash him at all. 37 minutes, about 52.5 fantasy points. So if both those guys sit again, I think we have a pretty good baseline for what we can expect from Lonzo, which obviously would make him a very appealing target. Eric Bledsoe, another guy who obviously gets an uptick. James Johnson, just filling up the stat sheet, over 43 fantasy points in about 34 minutes of playing time. So there's kind of, those guys, obviously. Steven Adams, maybe you can look at it. Like I said that last time, he really wasn't. He wasn't bad, actually, 37 fantasy points, but I don't think we're expecting that type of efficiency for him going forward. Only 22 minutes court time there. And then, obviously Isaiah Thomas throws a wrench into the situation. It's kind of unclear as to what his role is going to be. We have him projected for 16 minutes right now. It's kind of, just obviously very unclear. I assume he would more or less play like a Kira Lewis kind of role, would fill in there. But, yeah, there's just so much up in the air with this team still.
What else are you monitoring? We're going to let you go in a second, obviously, because it's super quiet. I presume that news is going to break soon enough. We obviously have the Drummond situation. He's currently questionable right now. That is a 7:30 game. So they're not playing on the West Coast. They're playing, I guess, in Orlando. One of the reasons why Toronto's probably been terrible, every single game is a road game for them. I'd imagine that is something that's got to be wearing on them. Drummond. How intrigued are we on Drummond? He looked terrible in his first game. He did have that toe injury as well. So, do we have any kind of read on it as far as the potential minutes? They said starters minutes. We haven't seen it play out just yet, obviously. But what are we doing with Drummond? Thoughts there?
Yeah, them saying starters minutes really could mean a lot, because if it's the starters minutes they give to Marc Gasol, that could be a pretty low number. We have him projected, at least I had him last night at 24. Was where I landed on him, kind of more or less just a split with Harrell, kind of, admitting that I don't really know fully what his role is going to be there. Obviously, he got hurt in that first game that he played, so it's kind of tough to gauge what was going to happen there. Pretty much it's a split with Harrell. We do have Gasol in the pool with like a 2-minute projection. I just kind of wanted to keep him in there in the event that the people, for whatever reason, wanted to use him, assuming he would start, which he will if Drummond doesn't play. So there's that situation. I think maybe on FanDuel you can take a look. There's no way I'd be willing to pay that price tag on DraftKings at 6.5K. But maybe on FanDuel you can kind of get behind it. The only other situations we didn't really touch on are Brandon Clark, questionable for Memphis. Doesn't really open up a whole lot. But I think like Kyle Anderson's a guy I think would be a little bit more appealing. His playing time could rise slightly. And then Jamal Murray being questionable, the other big one. He was downgraded during the day today. Probably doesn't bode well. I would assume Monty Morris starts. If he doesn't go, I wouldn't be super excited to play Morris, just given that like the usage with those 4 starters is going to be very low, and Jokic is still going to be like the lead distributor. And I mean, now that Eric Gordon's there, Jokic's numbers have been down a little bit, which is, I guess kind of to be expected given that Gordon's more involved offensively than the other 4s. So yeah, I mean, it's, obviously Michael Porter Jr., another guy there that could see a couple extra shot attempts, but yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of what we know we're waiting on right now.
Yeah, I mean, Morris presumably would jump in the starting lineup. He would be the 5th option, behind Jokic, behind Barton, behind Gordon, behind MPJ. Jokic does get a bump, which I think is kind of interesting. At least what we've seen out of the on-off stuff. I kicked off Murray, and Jokic has seen a nice little usage bump. And there's been a push-pull, I guess, if you want to argue against it and say, well, Gordon's been taken away from Jokic as well, too. You got anything, Chief? You got anything for Keach before we let him go?
No, man. Let's go Braves. Just hitting it out of the park today. Thank you.
Yeah, I was happy my Phils got a nice little sweet to start the season up there. Sorry about that, Chief.
It's all right, man. A long season this time. A real long season.
That's true.
All right, dude, but much appreciate your time. Hopefully, hopefully it's not perfectly quiet. Hopefully we get some clarity soon enough and you'll be adjusting stuff there at Lineup HQ. The OGs will be talking to you guys tomorrow, talking to yourself tomorrow night, SBK. Enjoy the rest of your night. Do want to say hello once again to chat. What up, chat? Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Do appreciate that. And again, fire off your questions. Devin, our producer, is going to be joining the show soon enough, 10, 15 minutes, give or take. He'll be around for 10 or 15 minutes firing off the questions on behalf of the chat. Ask us about the slate. Sure, it'll be fun. And, do specify. It makes things so much easier. Broad questions are welcome too, not just this guy or that guy. Broad questions as far as this slate. Is there something you're doing, Chief, as far as making this slate smaller? Are you crossing out any teams? Are you crossing out any games specifically? Anything just sort of, I don't want any of that? No good?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely going to be crossing off the Heat Grizzlies game. Don't really want to worry about it. And not because I don't think guys in there are unplayable. I just think I won't need them to win a GPP. And I could very well be wrong, and I can live with that. But that's definitely a game I'm going to scratch off. And that's
not to cut you off, but who's kind of chalky in that game is Grayson Allen, and that's
I realized that. Yeah, because I mean that tells you the state of the slate. Grayson Allen is possibly going to be chalky. Now, if we get more news, I think that ownership comes down. I
think so too. I don't think he's really reliant on his shot, and he can score 25 real life points and get there just on points alone, but he doesn't do a heck of a lot else. But also, there's several dudes on Memphis that are
just like his counterpart, Duncan Robinson, on the other side.
Yeah, I never play Robinson, man.
Pretty much all never. The same. Here's what I will say: I think there's some spots we can get some leverage in at the center spot, right? And I'm gonna, and this is on DK and FanDuel, so both sites. I think Joel Embiid is good leverage today.
Okay,
I think he came off the injury. Played 29 minutes against Minnesota. Put up 41 fantasy points on DK, pretty much the same on FanDuel. Had 3 blocks, 24 real points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, right? But this is a guy that we know they're going to start going through him down the stretch. What I realized in that game was he only took 14 shots. And if you look at kind of his game log, typically what you see is him getting up in the 20s. Now, he's not going to have 20 plus every game, but most games he is going to have 20 plus shots, right? Most games. So, he was at 41 fantasy points. You add another, I don't know, let's say 6 or 7 shots, right? Now he's got a chance to get in that 50 category, picks up another couple peripherals, picks up the double-double, picks up another couple assists. Now we're starting to get a little bit closer to 60. So I think Embiid is a really good leverage play. I did play him over the weekend coming back, and obviously he played 29 minutes, and Karl-Anthony Towns plays 44 minutes or whatever it was, and that's a difference of 20-something points. But in reality, Joel Embiid is in a smash spot here today against Boston, who's kind of been unraveling over the season. I think they just kind of haven't been able to get it together. We're riddled with COVID at the front end, riddled with some injuries down the line. Such a topsy-turvy season for them. But I do think Embiid is on the radar today as a very good tournament play that a lot of people aren't going to be on. And
Nobody's playing him. Nobody's playing.
Right. And then secondly, I do think God, what's his name? Vooch is kind of in the same boat. I think it's a similar situation where maybe we haven't quite seen the upside consistently, but I mean, in the past 2 games, he's put up 50 fantasy points, and he's going against Indiana today, and they don't have anybody on this team that's going to stop him. The question is the game going to stay close enough for him to hit the upside? So I think Vooch is kind of in the same boat, and I guess you're probably saying, well, you're focusing on the center position, but I think the center position is like the position every day. Like if you nail that, I think you can kind of set your lineup up for success. So especially on a site like DraftKings, like I'd be willing to go with a Clint Capella, Vucevic kind of, double stud center, one at utility, one at center, and build from there. Or go with the Embiid Vucevic combo or an Embiid Capella. And what it does is it's going to completely give you a different build than the field. And I think that's a way to really get different on this slate. So that's an option I'm going to be exploring for certain as we go down the stretch here and pick up more news.
Both Vuk and Embiid's projected for less than 10% ownership on DK specifically. I would, again, throw out Boucher. What happened yesterday doesn't necessarily mean what's going to happen today. They still only have 9 bodies there, Toronto, and like 2 of those bodies are the steamers, Stanley Johnson and like Watanabe, who doesn't get a ton of a run. Is Flynn good chalk? It feels like really good chalk on DK. Even if he doesn't start, I think he's fine. We saw that yesterday. Doesn't necessarily mean he is going to close, but and who else is going to handle the ball?
He's played 30+ minutes in back-to-back games. I got to assume he plays at least 30.
I think so too. Again, I think FanDuel is a really strong play, but I like that position. I think there's an opportunity cost of I think Trae Young is well positioned today. 8.5K for Trae Young seems a little bit cheap. Simmons at 7.4, who may actually benefit. You could argue he benefits with the presence of Embiid. You can make an argument.
Another Draymond Green type, huh? Draymond benefits with Curry. Simmons benefits with Embiid.
That is the segue because Curry's back tonight. Golden State is on an island game. Didn't play yesterday, not playing tomorrow. They're facing Milwaukee. Didn't play yesterday, not playing tomorrow. Massive total as far as that game. 2 of the fastest teams in all of basketball. 237.5. And if Golden State does keep this game reasonably tight, 7-point spread, it's on ESPN. Steph's back. He's not going to come back unless he's fully healthy. So I assume he gets his 35 minutes. I like this hammer. I think it's a really, really good hammer tonight with Giannis, with Curry, with Draymond. Are you with me?
In my head, yes. In my heart, no.
Oh,
yeah.
I gave a good sales pitch. No, do I have to sell it more? You just think that Milwaukee blows them out?
My mind is telling me yes, but my body is telling me no. I don't know if you guys heard that one. I just kind of did a little remix there for the
get some copyright strikes on that one, I think.
Well, no, because I didn't use the exact verbiage. The real song is my mind is telling me no, my body's telling me yes. In this case, my mind is telling me yes, my body's telling me no.
Yes.
At any rate, I think the game is fine. I do think this is it's in play, right? I mean, we see Giannis is carrying some ownership, Middleton's carrying some ownership, Holiday's not carrying much ownership for good reason. He's been priced up, but I get it. I think between the Portland Clippers and Bucks Warriors, I'm more on Portland Clippers than Bucks Warriors, and that's kind of why I'm not really on the Bucks Warriors as much.
Do we assume, because the Clippers also island game, do we assume there's going to be no shenanigans? Everybody's healthy and nobody's going to get some kind of mystery illness or mystery injury out of nowhere?
Yeah, I think we're going to be okay. I do really like Kawhi Leonard today as well. He's another one of these kind of mid-rangey, medium upside plays. Like, I'm not expecting 60, but I think he could get 55-ish, 52, 53 up in that area. I don't know if we've seen Kawhi hit 60 all season, to be honest with you. He's gotten close a couple of times, but I don't think he's hit 60 all year. And that's, once. And that was against Brooklyn in February when they were running wide open like a freight train.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yes, absolutely. But he is someone that I like. I think he's got enough floor and enough of a ceiling to get there tonight. I just don't feel like the slate has slate breakers. Like, I know Giannis could be a slate breaker, but I'm not expecting 70 from Giannis tonight, and that could be wrong. Like, obviously, I think 60 to 65 is reasonable. And kind of the same thing for Embiid. I'm not expecting 70, but I think, 60 is in the card. So that's kind of where I am. I just don't see the slate having a lot of oomph to it. If we can go with that onomatopoeia, the slate just doesn't have a lot of oomph. So so for that reason, I'm kind of looking at the slate a little different, trying to get some other guys in there that I think have the upside.
Do we care about Boston? No Fournier, Smart, I think is a nice play on FanDuel. I like his price over there. I think his game kind of works there with the stocks. When he gets his ceiling games, it's because he has 3 blocks and 3 steals. That's how he gets there. So he's a reasonable price. We haven't talked about Tatum or Time Lord. Of course, the price is adjusted. Is he going to get in foul trouble right away versus Embiid?
Absolutely. So look, in this game, I do think Boston-Philly is a kind of a contrarian game where maybe it should be competitive. The thing is this, and this is a personal rule of Will. I'm not trying to force this rule on anyone. This is my personal rule, and it helps me from making what I consider to be negative EV decisions. I don't play Kemba, Smart, Brown, or Tatum when they all play. I just quit playing them all together. When they're all playing, I just don't touch them. And from a percentage standpoint, I feel like 70 to 80% of the time, I'm going to be just fine. And that other 20% where one of these guys goes off for a massive 50-point game, I'm willing to take my lumps and move on to the next slate. If any one of these guys were ruled out, whether it be Kemba, Tatum, or Brown, I'd be extremely interested in this spot. But with everyone playing, I don't feel like Fournier moves the needle enough for me. And so I just don't play any of them. And if anyone has a good, because here's the thing, only one of them is going to have a good game. It's not going to be 2. It's not going to be 3. It's going to be 1. And I don't know which one of those guys it's going to be. And typically they all just kind of have marginal games. Jason Tatum will get his 42. Brown will get his 36, 37. Kemba will get his 32 to 35. Marcus Smart will get his 25 to 28. Robert Williams is going to get his 35 to 39. Grant Williams is going to get his 8 to 18. Peyton Pritchard's going to get his, 10 to 15. If Luke Cornett touches the court, he'll get his 5 to 8. Semi Ojeleye, if he plays, he'll get his 5 to 8.
What about Taco Fall? How many points is he going to get?
And Taco Fall is going to take his big 0 today. and then at the end of the night, you're looking and you're like, why did I play anyone from Boston when I knew this was going to happen? And so for that reason, I've pretty much scratched off this team all year when everyone plays. I need someone to be out when I play Boston.
If Taco Fall gets anything but a 0, something either really good happened for Boston or really bad happened for Boston. That's kind of how that works. And I have a similar, I agree with you, general statement. Of course, the price kind of forces me there and there's a big enough discount that's baked in. And I have a similar rule with like Utah, same idea. Like Utah, I ignore all the time unless one guy's out and then we all the Utah because they're not very deep and everybody gets a bump uniformly, essentially. By the way, is it weird to see Toronto with a 208 total? Like they're a terrible defensive team, but I guess that's, the matchup there against the Lakers. It just seems like a low number for a Raptors
think that's
game.
more Lakers than Raptors.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and probably, I mean, it's listen, the Lakers are only -1. So it's not like there's some big gap here, but I think, the Lakers pace of play is just really driving this total down. But that still doesn't mean you shouldn't play the Raptors because they only have 9 guys. Like that's the point with this Raptors team. These guys are going to play their minutes. And so I think we still need to have them in our player pool for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Flynn is a really, really solid play. Obviously, on DK, he's 3.9, but I think you can, if you're an MME guy, you're firing out a bunch of lineups. I think you can throw darts at Baines, who's still a minimum, and I think you can throw darts at Bembry, who's still a minimum, but both at 3K, because it's hard to nail down. It depends. It's game flow dependent, exactly who's going to be closing there for Toronto. And we saw what happened there last night. If there's somebody we haven't mentioned yet, there's a player you guys are putting in your lineup. How come they haven't talked about so-and-so? It might be a good play. We're not neglecting them. You can only talk about so many players. Ask us in the chat. Do you subscribe to our notifications and say, hey, what about this dude? You guys haven't mentioned them. I want to stack up that Atlanta New Orleans game. That could be really interesting if a bunch of guys out and then you have Trae Young and Capella. Is that something we're considering doing? Give me some game stacks.
Yeah, I think Atlanta New Orleans is okay. I do think if all these guys come back, Ingram, Zion, if Ingram and Zion come back, then I'm kind of out on that team. And especially on FanDuel, because now Zion is 9.7. I'm not paying 9.7 for Zion on FanDuel. Brandon Ingram's 8K. I mean, if he gets over 40, it's not going to be by much. And Lonzo's 7,500. I like the price, but the likelihood of Lonzo going for 38 fantasy points in this spot, very unlikely, I think, with everyone playing. So that's kind of where I am. And you're probably saying, well, Chief, what about on DK? DK, a little different story. Zion's 89. Don't hate it, but don't love it. And look, Zion's a guy I've been playing recently because he has dialed up the upside as the season has gone along. But at 89, I don't think I need him. Brandon Ingram is 81 on DK. Probably won't have much of him there either. So that's where I am.
But what if Zion is out? If Zion is out and Ingram is in, you're still not interested?
If Zion is out and Ingram is in, that's a totally different scenario. Okay.
Yeah. Or vice versa.
Point, right. But even at 9,700 for Zion on FanDuel, let me just clarify.
That's a squeeze.
On FanDuel, even if Ingram's out and he's in, I still don't feel the necessity of the play. On DK at 89, definitely, he's a little bit better to stomach, if you will.
A reminder, following us, Dave Potts, Cheese is Good, 2-time millionaire winner, along with Stevie. We're talking baseball. They lean into Crunch Time Stream, but free. Free today is Dave Potts and Stevie. I think we hand over the reins at 5:15 on the East Coast. This funky time has thrown me off. And because of that, Devin, I think I took minutes away from you. I know you like your screen time. You like your 15 minutes, but my apologies.
It's okay, Dean. One of these days we'll hit that time.
Well, this is me just being passive aggressive because you sent out a tweet today and you were supposed to put my name on there and you didn't at me.
I added like Dean78904, I think. Yeah. Which that's not your Twitter handle. But for some reason.
Well, no, it's not. Yeah.
It's not.
That's true.
But Twitter was like, oh, this is the Dean you're talking about. And then it was like, I send the tweet and it's like, no, psych, that's not him.
Is there some random person that has that handle? And I'm
I
not
think
aware?
it's just
like
untagged.
They're like an accountant in Missouri?
I think it was like a ghost tag. I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
It's Landa 78904.
That's great.
He's resurfaced.
77777.
I saw him on Twitter. We had an interaction
where's
the other day.
Pepsi?
Dean's biggest fan. He hit me
Pepsi's
up for
my
some.
guy.
He hit me up for some season long MLB contests, trying to get me in on it. And I was like,
I'm in one of those
Pepsi
leagues.
7, and we are on the bump. I'm dating my DFS career.
R.I.P. the bump. We got some questions, though. Yeah. A little bit of a popularity for basketball today. We can start with Unicorn. What about Bembry starting at point guard?
Well, is that going to happen again? I don't know if that's going to happen again. And
is that speculative?
Yeah, I mean, he started yesterday, and I guess, was he the point guard? I think Pascal was kind of sort of the point guard. But
even if he doesn't start, he's very cheap. Like, even if he doesn't start, he's still going to play 28 minutes? I would say, I mean, wouldn't you agree? I still think he gets 28 minutes.
It's in flux, but it's like they kind of eat away at each other. But I assume that 28 is a reasonable guess. That's probably where we haven't projected at. I still think
we've got him projected at 22. I think he gets more minutes than that when they only have 8 bodies. Like, there's going to be some overlap between the rotation.
I think it's 9, but 9 guys. The same point, though. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, K-Mac FanDuel Tournament. Jeremy Grant or James Johnson?
Wow, what a question.
Wow, that's a head scratcher, literally. I think as of now, without the news, it would probably be Jeremy Grant. with the news, if Zion's out and Ingram,
Yeah.
it's absolutely James Johnson. Like, absolutely.
Does Detroit give Plumlee and Grant extra run this game in Denver, or they don't care?
I don't think they're going to have a chance to give them extra run. I'm not anticipating Detroit to be anywhere near the final stretch here. I think this game's over in the third quarter.
So no oomph for Plumlee today.
No oomph for Plumlee.
When you think of Plumlee, you definitely think of him.
Definitely an oomph kind of guy. Morningwood wants to know, DK Tournament, what are your core plays for tonight? And I'm actually going to take a guess on this one before we go. Embiid for Will, Giannis, Curry, Draymond for Dean.
Yeah, I like Giannis as the guy. That's like the main piece I want to get. Curry's more of a tournament guy, but I'm just playing tournaments tonight for basketball for what it's worth. So.
It's a tournament question anyway. So
yeah, who was the third one?
Giannis, Curry, Draymond.
Yeah, I will make that team. I don't want to say that's a core. I would say the most core amongst those three is Giannis, and then Flynn. I know it's not a sexy answer, but he's almost definitely going to be a core play for me.
First name's Malachi. That's sexy, Dean. Come on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Malik.
Is it Malik?
Is that his Malik?
Joaquin. Have you guys seen those progressive commercials?
I don't know.
Never mind.
I probably
you guys
have.
Ever seen the commercials, but where Dr. Rick is like the fake Dr. Phil, and he's helping homeowners not become their parent.
Yeah,
they're hilarious.
Parental life coach.
Is that am I crossing over? Is Flo involved, or is that a different company?
No, that's Flo, but we don't have to worry about Flo because they've got a better shtick now.
Right, it's Dr. Rick. At any rate, let me say this because were they asking about our core for tournament?
Yeah, tournament core on DK.
Yeah, let's go Flynn for sure. Let's go. I'm actually going deep on Toronto again. So I'm going Flynn, OG, Siakam. Yeah, Flynn, OG, Siakam. And then let's go absolutely either an 8K center or a 10K center. So it's going to be Embiid, it's going to be Vooch, or it's going to be Capella.
I may have missed this. I don't think I got an official take as far as Drummond on FanDuel, where he's 5'2". What are you doing with that? Assuming he plays. If he doesn't, cross him out.
I'm going to fade him. Here's why. Here's why, Dean. On FanDuel, center is the ultimate leverage spot because you only get one. And when everybody's playing Drummond at 5'2", if I'm taking Capella or Embiid or Vooch, I'm automatically giving myself a shot at completely unique lineup construction. So where they might spend their 5'2" on Drummond, I might spend my 5'2" in a different spot, or my 4'2", or my 6'1", or whatever. And so my lineup construction is immediately unique. If Drummond is ruled in, I think right now we've got him close to 30%. I think he hits 35, 40 maybe, because that's really good value on a guy that can get to 40, 50 fantasy points. But I'm willing to take the risk in the event he only gets 20 minutes, and he can still get there in 20 minutes. But I'm just willing to take the risk to get really unique lineup construction.
I like it.
Fair enough.
I was actually going to ask myself, did Boucher get some run last night? I think that was one of the questions we were taking.
I think he played 20 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. 20 minutes, right?
He started, but he didn't close because the Baines lineup was playing well. They were behind. They caught up. They ended up winning the game on a buzzer beater. And I think Baines, we could check it. We really have to, but I'm pretty sure Baines played the entire fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. They're not going to play the two of them together. Very rarely is that going to happen. They will cross on occasion, but again, I think they're both interesting. Boucher, you catch him on the right night. I mean, he's obviously got a bigger ceiling too, a little more expensive for real. But he can get 7 or 8 or 9 stocks and pay off his FanDuel price just in stocks alone. He's capable of hitting threes. Of course, he works the glass as well too. I am for sure going to have some Boucher in tournaments because maybe people are like, well, it didn't work yesterday, so it's not going to work today. But that's not always how DFS works or the Toronto Raptors rotations.
Very true. Will, any thoughts?
Listen, I'm just going to co-sign with Dean on that one. I think that's the perfect segue.
Perfect. K-Mac wants to know, FanDuel tournament, can you rank these? Jeremy Grant, Aaron Gordon, Mason Plumlee, and Will Barton.
Okay, to me, this is all based on news. If Jamal Murray is out, Barton is number 1. Listen, if Jamal Murray is out, Barton number 1, Gordon number 2, Grant number 3, and then whoever else that was. Plumlee's definitely last. Absolutely last.
Super Poopy asking the real questions wants to know, is it Whoop or Woot? There it is, or is it Whoop? There it is. I've always thought it was whoop, like just a P at the end. There.
Yeah, like whoopee.
Yeah.
Whoop, like whoopee cushion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might be hearing it wrong, but
it's the WH. Wha. The whoop.
I'm gonna Google.
Lonnie wants to know
geez.
why is that? Oh, we already touched on this one. Lonnie had earlier ownership projections on Thad Young. Definitely had gone down. 4KT wants to know FanDuel, is Terrence Mann a sneaky play considering Surge is out?
Not anymore because Paul George is back. Reggie's still playing a little bit. What's his name?
There's even a chance Beverly plays tonight. He's questionable.
Yeah, Beverly may play. So I don't think he's as in play. When all those guys were out, he was getting 30 minutes. I mean, man, fantastic, but not anymore.
According to Google, it's Whoop. There it is. Tag team
with an M. About?
Yeah, tag team.
Yeah.
Sprinkles. Chakalaka, chakalaka.
That's a pretty clever commercial.
Yeah, that
actually.
one was good.
Yes.
Do you remember when that song came out, Devin, or you don't? You have no idea.
Oh, geez.
I'm gonna go 1992.
No,
Let's see.
I don't remember.
I think the over on that. I think it's 93. You almost won those showdowns.
You know what's funny
Close.
is my mom was working in a corporate computer technologies job at the time, and they had an in-office video where they had like the whole staff like dub over that song. It was the cheesy, like I think back to it now and I'm like, I cringe thinking about it.
What was the video craze a couple years ago? Like in the Miami Heat, they had Birdman in it. What was that? And everybody did their own version of it. Oh God. Nobody knows what I'm talking about.
There's been so many of them, dude.
There was like this craze where everybody like would stop and then everybody was like wearing costumes or doing something. Everybody's doing something goofy.
Oh yeah, it was the some sort of what was the song? It was the I forget. I'll have to remember it. Juicy wants to know favorite FanDuel tournament picks for center.
Oh, I've already given out those for
yeah,
sure.
We've touched on Embiid
for
plenty.
sure. Capella, like those are the two. Embiid, Capella, Vooch, those three.
All right. What's a good basic strategy for a novice? And maybe we can spend a minute or two looking at this one and close out afterwards.
I'm gonna tell you this right now. First of all, go in lineup HQ. There's 20 different things I want to tell you, but let me tell you, if you want to just get different, go in lineup HQ. Don't touch a thing. Hit the optimize button. Look at 100 lineups. It'll tell you exactly what the cash lineup is going to look like. And then try to redistribute salary in different places. If you're on FanDuel, you literally only have to change the center. Get off of Andre Drummond, play Embiid, play Capella, play Vooch, and automatically you will end up with lineup construction that no one wants to play. And as a novice, that's the only thing I can give you in 25 seconds. Other than that, hit me up on Twitter. We'll do a class or something.
Harlem
this is
Shake.
More important.
Harlem Shake.
Yes.
That's what it was.
And somebody chatted that was 15 years ago. It was 2012. It might feel like it was 15 years ago.
Oh my God. I was like, no, hang on. No way.
Like that wasn't 15 years ago. Birdman was on the Heat when it happened. So
you know, it's funny.
There's no way it wasn't 15. I remember Birdman and LeBron and Wade, and I just remember the video. It's a fun one. Google that one, kids. But yeah, the Harlem Shake. There you go. Is that how we're closing out the show?
I guess we'll have to close out on the Harlem Shake. I can tell a quick story.
This show is starting to pick up some steam.
Yeah.
Well, it's just getting good.
Baseball hour's coming up too. People are excited for that.
Gee. Listen, we're talking about Harlem Shake, man. We need to throw
right?
back and bounce in there. Let's throw it in.
Oh man, if only.
The Macarena got a shout out in chat, as did the Gangnam Style. There you go. Psy.
There was a video I did before I was working for Rotogrinders. Big and Rich, the music pair. I was doing a music video for some friends of mine. I helped out. They needed somebody to stand in a giant like boombox outfit. I walked around downtown. It was the middle of the summer. I was sweating so much, but we had Harlem Shake and a bunch of songs playing from this giant cardboard speaker outfit I had on. I'll have to find the link.
Can you put this on Twitter later on this evening?
I think it is on Twitter, but yeah, I'll see if I can dig up the link and find it.
I will give you, despite the fact you neglect my Twitter account, I will overlook that and I will give you a retweet. How about that?
All right. I'll hold you to that one, Dean.
Stay tuned. Y'all get Dave Potts. Cheese is good, along with Stevie talking some baseball. Are you playing baseball tonight, Will, or is it just basketball for you?
Oh man, I feel like I might just be basketball tonight. Now, I tell you what, this is what's going to determine. I've been looking at this qualifier on FanDuel all day, and you're saying, well, Will, you want to base your investment on a qualifier? Well, yes, I do. It's only $44 today. and I'm pulling it up on my phone. Sorry if we're eating into the other guys' time.
Dave's gonna be very angry.
7:05 main slate. If it's still there, I might hop in. And it's still there.
There you go.
There we go.
So I guess I will be playing some baseball.
Nice.
I'll get you started. Lucas Giolito. There you go. You're welcome. Yeah.
The kiss of death, Dean. Thanks a lot.
Why are you giving me that look? A lot of studs going tonight.
Oh, Tyler Glass now against Boston.
Well, he's good too. You can play them both on DK.
All right, guys.
Really,
We're the
really
basketball show. We got to close out here.
All right, fair enough.
Listen, we need to do a mashup show where the basketball team just hops into the baseball
Can we just
dugout.
cross over?
We'll just do a big Brady bunch.
And then basketball and baseball hop into crunch time. Like that. Listen, we need to make this
And
happen.
I'll just be sweating bullets behind the scenes the whole time.
Devin, we appreciate you not cutting us off a minute over time.
Hey, NBA Top Shot After Lock. Come join us 7:30. Going to be talking Top Shot. Where's the market going? Is Top Shot dead? What do you need to be buying? Has Dean opened his pack? Sorry to hijack that, but Top Shots at 7:30. People, come hang out. Top Shots 7:30. See you there.
I got my Jokic Cool Cat. I'll tell you, my cereal wasn't good. All right, that was Will. That was Devin. Thank you, chat. Thank you for participating. Thank you for asking questions. It makes the show a lot more fun. Do hit the like button, subscribe. Don't go anywhere because baseball's up next. Dave Potts, Cheese is good. Stevie TPFL. That was Devin. That was Will. That was basketball. What could I
The main thing on yesterday's slate was what were you going to do with DeGrom, what were you going to do with Rodon, right? Because most of the other pitching options were horrible, right? You didn't expect Trevor Williams to come out and pitch the way he did. And, I mean, he kind of broke down a little, so he only got 22.5 points. And he was facing the chalk stack, okay? So to me, you have to think in terms of, like, Rodon, to me, that's the classic high variance SP2 that's going to be chalk because the rest of the pitchers on the slate are, do you really want to play them? So like Rodon on DK was 41% owned. Yeah, he could have put a great game. Sure. I played Rodon. I played Rodon on FanDuel when he was low owned on FanDuel. Not like low owned, but DeGrom was like 60% owned on FanDuel. You only played one pitcher though. But Rodon, I think it's more likely that you play Mariners, which is what I did. Play Mariners against Rodon than you would playing Trevor Williams, the pitcher, against the chalk stack. You gain more leverage, more relative value by playing the stack against the pitcher that's chalk than the reverse. So I see people ask that question. They go, oh, Milwaukee's going to be chalk because Milwaukee was chalk yesterday. We even go to just a sharp ownership, just in general. I mean, we have Yelich at 19%. We have Hura at 18%. Javi Garcia, 15.9%. Narvaez, who hit a 3-run home run. You know, nice chalk catcher home run. Either we're playing Mercedes or Narvaez in that range. But like that Milwaukee stack was chalky. Mets were chalky. But there's so many more combinations of those batters. So like, what's the most owned in one lineup could 5 batters on DraftKings be, even if they're the Milwaukee stack? It's going to be a single-digit percentage. Right? The combinations of Yelich and Hura and Garcia and Narvaez. You had JBJ, you had Colton Wong. It's like you gain so much more. Like there's so many more lineups that don't have any Milwaukee players in it. Right? There's more lineups. There's 80% of the lineups don't even have a Brewer in it, most likely. You know that 42% of lineups have Rodon in it. And Rodon could be negative. The batters can't be negative. They just get zeros, right? They just have nothing. But, I mean, a lot of batters only get 5s and 7s and 2s. But when a pitcher that, hey, you may need to get 60 points out of your pitcher spots combined, maybe 50 to 60. You have a -7 there, you're dead. I mean, like, you're dead. And the stack ends up putting up more points. So to me, Trevor Williams wasn't, I don't think in terms of Milwaukee's going to be chalk. Let me play the pitcher against them. Like how much relative value am I'm going to get on the field by doing that? More likely, Rodon's going to be chalk, right? Now DeGrom, like yes, you could, yeah, sure, you could stack the Phillies against DeGrom, but also understand that if you're going to play a stack, you need that team to put up a lot of points. I mean, you need a lot of runs. So yeah, DeGrom's a bad DeGrom game. He gives up what, 4 runs or something? I mean, like, yeah, the Mets bullpen is horrible. So maybe they give up more runs, but I mean, you're not going to gain as much stacking against guys that just, it's so rare for guys of that caliber to just, 12 runs against him. You're not going to get Rodon. It wouldn't shock me, right? Anyone else? I mean, there's only a select few pitchers that are like that. That you look on and you go, like, I just don't see 10 runs being scored off this guy, right? A bad game is oh, he only has 4 strikeouts, 3 walks, and gives up 5 runs. And it's like, is 5 runs going to do for the stack on a low-scoring slate? Maybe. So, like, I wasn't even thinking about the Phillies. Like, it just comes down to, do you play DeGrom or you do not play DeGrom? Not playing DeGrom and then playing the Phillies. Maybe play a one-off, okay. You're going to play Rhys Hoskins or something? Is okay. The whole stack, I don't know. But when it comes to those SP2s, especially high variance ones like Rodon, now he had a great game yesterday. Okay, great. You got that outcome. The Mariners, you play Haniger and White and Kyle Seager, lefty. People don't want to do that. So I played some Seattle stacks because you could gain more relative value by doing that. Doesn't mean you don't play Rodon. I mean, I played 100 lineups on FanDuel. So like I had plenty of Rodon, but I also had other lineups that were Seattle stacks. And then in my non-DeGrom lineups, you say, well, if you're not going to play DeGrom and you're not going to play Rodon, who are you going to play? It's like, well, what's wrong with Dustin May? What's wrong with Justice Sheffield? Right? What's wrong with Nick Pivetta? You don't want to trust these people, but they can put up a decent game. But the point is that I'm not fading DeGrom because I think he's going to do bad. I'm fading DeGrom because I don't think he doesn't necessarily, there's a win condition on non-DeGrom lineups that DeGrom does okay, but not 40 points. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. I mean, no one expected him to just pitch 77 pitches. We expected another inning out of him. But like on FanDuel, he got like 43 points. Rodon got more points. May got more points. Now, DeGrom has the highest ceiling, yes. But a pedestrian game and 77 pitch count game, is he going to be necessary? So don't think in terms of when you see the ace pitchers. Oh, Cole's on the slate or whoever, the Bieber. And you go, oh, if you're fading them, they're by far the best pitcher on the slate for 11,000 or something. And you go, well, maybe they just don't put up a score that's 11,000. They don't have a bad game. Six innings, 2 earned runs, 4 hits, 7 strikeouts. It's like, it's not a bad game. You'd love that game out of a pitcher that was like 7,000, but they're 11,000. So 25 points I could find 25 points elsewhere. Or maybe they are the highest scoring pitcher with 25 points, but there's a whole bunch of pitchers that have 18 to 22. And it's like the difference of the 3 or 4 points isn't going to matter that much. So don't think in terms of most people, they're thinking in terms of results. What is going to happen tonight? What is going to happen today? Don't think in terms of that. Think in terms of what is the win condition of my lineup, of this specific lineup. It doesn't mean you're playing one lineup. You're playing 10 lineups. You could have 10 different win conditions. One lineup has DeGrom. One lineup doesn't have DeGrom. So in what condition does this lineup win? Well, if DeGrom doesn't pitch as well. So you're not predicting an outcome. Where do you get more relative value? By hoping that DeGrom doesn't pitch as well. Zone 70, this combination, DeGrom plus Rodon, is in like half the lineups, but a third of the lineups in the contest. One of them fails, and you didn't need DeGrom yesterday. We saw Forsaken yesterday with the Dodgers stack, which I was over on the Dodgers. Because they were chalking cores, right? Oh, they're cores. Got to play the Dodgers. Chalk every night. Then they go to Oakland. Oh, can't play them in that ballpark. With the DH? No, they're the Dodgers, for crying out loud. Why not? I played a lot of Dodgers. I played a lot of the Astros yesterday. Played some Boston. I had some of that Boston. But you can see here, Dustin May, Carlos Rodon. And that's how you spend up for all the batters. I mean, that's how you do it. You don't have DeGrom in this lineup. You could pay for Turner and Baez and Betts. But of course, he had 2 punts. Ruff, and Zach McKinstry in his stack. I played some Zach McKinstry. Oh, he's batting 9th. Well, who cares? The Dodgers put up 12 runs, so he'll get up 4 or 5 times. People concern themselves too much about, like, what batting orders. Oh, I can't.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Grinders Live, the baseball edition. I'm Stevie TPFL. Great show by Will and Dean before us. If you are here wanting to check out basketball, you could always rewind, check that out. Also, Crunch Time right behind us is going to talk baseball and basketball. So we're here to talk baseball. And any time that we're going to talk baseball here at Rotogrinders, you always have to have the cheese. Cheese is good. What's happening, Dave?
Hello, Stevie. It is wonderful to talk to you for the second time this week. I have to go like 6 months without talking to you, and then here we are again. The last 10 minutes, I'm a little harried. My computer went out on me, and that's why I'm just. It doesn't look like I'm sitting in the middle of some beautiful downtown city behind me, but I'm here, and this is what my room looks like. So, hello.
Well, I like it. You got the Cleveland Browns, you got the championship belt. You have the treadmill, and we have baseball, and we have a great slate. Like,
I like
yesterday's slate, trash. The slate we talked about, when we did the podcast the other day, but here we go. We got 8 games. We have a lot to talk about. We're gonna get started with pitching, and like you said, you like it a lot. I like it a lot. So it should be a fun pot or a show today. Let's start with the top end, like. Dave, I don't know. I kind of already read expert survey, so I know you're on the same page as me when it comes to we're paying up for pitching today, right?
Yeah, it's really weird that well, it's not really weird. I mean, we see it sometimes at the beginning of the season, but the aces are not priced up to where they usually are. Like a lot of times you would see, 12K pitchers on DraftKings and 11.5 on FanDuel. We've got nobody over 10K on DraftKings, and then the lowest guy, there's nobody under 6K. So there's just no reason, especially with the hitter prices, there's no reason not to just play the best pitchers. This is not a day that I see much need to mess around. The other great thing about it, like yesterday, the DeGrom thing was tricky because he was the only ace. So you knew he was going to be like 80% owned, which changed the decision. But today you've got at least 4 aces. Some people might consider Paxton a 5th. So the ownership's not going to be 80% on anybody because it's going to be spread around those 4 guys. So I think you just pay up.
Yeah. I talked about expert survey. You guys can always check that out. We are offering subscribers the option to select sports for premium subscriptions or select combo premium, which includes pretty much everything except for NASCAR. Promo link is in the chat over there on YouTube. What's up, chat? Hope everyone's having a great day. You can get $10 off your first month for either combo or a single sport. So maybe you're just playing baseball, obviously use that $10 off link and, take advantage of that. But DeGrom, obviously yesterday he was the guy, but today, Dave, we got Darvish, we got Kershaw, Giolito, Glass now. Like, what do you think of these 4 guys at the top end today?
Yeah, so, I mean, quite simply, I like all of them, and I want to play all of them, but it's definitely Giolito on top for me. The skills are pretty close between all of them, but if there's an edge, it is to Giolito with his strikeout rate. But more of the fact that if you consider, say that Glasnow, Giolito, and Darvish are all more or less the same in strikeout upside, Giolito's the one facing the Mariners, who are the high strikeout team of all these opponents. and he's not even the highest priced guy. So for me, I think it's Giolito first, probably Darvish second, Glasnow third, and Kershaw fourth. But truly, I mean, I'm going to be mixed and matched. I just think they're all too good to avoid.
Yeah, like when you're looking at the Mariners lineup, just in general, Kyle Seager's hitting the ball like really hard. I think he had like 8 batted balls in the first 3 games of the season, and like I don't think any of them fell. So like he's obviously hitting the ball super hard. But Mitch Haniger, solid, much better against lefties and righties. But like then you get to the bottom of this order, and like the upside is double-digit strikeouts for him in this spot, and the fact that he's not the highest price pitcher on the slate is super interesting. Clayton Kershaw, first start was in Coors. I think it's a benefit, and I said this on the podcast this morning too, that he's with the DH. So like maybe he gets a little bit longer leash. And then Darvish, like he's facing the Giants, and this is a spot that Darvish could go out and throw a gem. But just kind of looking at projected ownership, Glasnow is almost a third of the ownership of all 3 of those guys. Does that pique your interest at all?
It does. Like he's very close to Darvish anyway for me, for my second favorite guy. And I do like them both slightly ahead of Kershaw just because they're a little bit more strikeout oriented. Sure, I would say Glasnow has the lowest sort of pitch count ceiling, but we see it all the time with him. When he's on, like he just piles up the strikeouts. Even if he throws 5 innings, that's, he can get 8 strikeouts easy in 5 innings. Yes, like I don't think any one of these guys should be drastically lower owned than the others. And according to this, Glasnow is basically the other 3 are about tied. And I think it should be basically a 4-way tie unless maybe Giolito were out front. So I would be fine to move Glasnow up ahead of Darvish on the list based on that.
Yeah, the kind of, I play a lot of 3-entry max through baseball, and, what I'm looking at is, definitely getting Giolito on 2, maybe 3 teams, and then kind of mixing and matching, getting Glasnow, getting Kershaw, Darvish in that build. And like, I just don't see really a reason. We have plenty of cheap bats. Coors is pretty much free. I know the weather's not perfect hitting conditions, but I don't need a ton of home runs for the price that these guys are. Let's talk about like the next tier here, Dave. I know, cash games, we're playing 2 of those 4 guys, one of those 4 guys on FanDuel, but like in tournaments, is anything kind of speaking to you here in like this mid-range?
So the short answer is no, it's really honestly not. But I mean, sure, there are builds you're going to make where you got to try something else. Certainly Freddie Peralta has tons of strikeout ability. He's probably going to be a 4, maybe 5 inning guy for a while here. Like he's already pitched 2 innings as a reliever a couple days ago. Like this is not a quite fully stretched out starter, but as far as strikeout upside, yeah, he's there. And I would point out his salary on FanDuel is crazy low. So I do think he's very playable there. These other cheaper DraftKings pitchers, I mean, I don't really have any interest in using Marquez at home. I think it's fine. Like the weather helps him a little bit. He is if he weren't in Coors and was 7K, he would be the guy. And then I guess if I have to use one of these lower guys, which I don't, I would probably use Chase Anderson, just go all the way down 6,200. I don't like the idea of facing the Mets lineup either, but he's at least an average pitcher. And if you're going to pay for something, pay for average, I guess. But officially, no, I think it's just too easy to get the expensive guys.
Yeah, way too easy. Like, I don't know. Paxton's somewhat interesting in large field tournaments, depending on what we're looking at for the White Sox lineup. I talked about Sheffield yesterday, and like Anderson was out. The announcers kind of thought that like Anderson's going to be out for the whole series. It definitely bumps Paxton, in my opinion, and like getting out of New York, I think is huge for James Paxton. I'm hoping that we see a different James Paxton this year for sure. Freddie Peralta is a guy that he can rack up strikeouts in bunches. He can also give up home runs in bunches as well. So, the wind looks like it's going to be blowing out a little bit in Wrigley. But the thing that kind of concerns me with both of those pitchers is like we have an extreme hitters umpire in the Cubs game today. So maybe they're not getting the corners. And when you're not getting the corners, Dave, you're throwing the ball over the plate a little bit more than we want to see. And
that's worse for Peralta than for a lot of pitchers because he's a borderline control guy. So with some guys, it doesn't matter so much. But Peralta is the kind of guy that he does need a little help on the edges that he's not going to get.
He does. Like, I need a little help. I need the corners.
You can hit the corners for any Stevie.
I could. I could not control a changeup, but man, I could hit the corner of the fastball. All right, Dave, anything else here for pitching?
No, and I'm totally on board with playing Paxton in tournaments, to be clear. Like, his first start of the year, who knows how the Mariners are going to treat him, and who knows if he's ready to come out of the gates on fire. But he is absolutely as good as those top four when everything is going right for him. I'm skeptical that he'll be in any sort of midseason form or, able to pitch 6+ innings. But yes, feel free to play Paxton for sure in tournaments.
All right, let's move over. We're going to go position by position. If you guys have questions, always feel free to post them over there on YouTube, and we'll get to the questions at the end. And if there's anything that pops up that we can answer as we're going, I'll do that as well. So let's go to catcher here. Listen, the theme so far this season is everybody's paying down at catcher. They're catching on to Stevie's 2010 strategy. Dave, what are we looking at here for catcher today?
Yeah, and the thing today is the cheap catchers are actually pretty good. Like, both Coors Field catchers are cheap and pretty good. Narvaez in that Wrigley game is cheap. Kirk for Toronto, he's actually a really good hitting prospect for a catcher, and he's cheap. But that plays into what you just said. Like, nobody's going to play Dahl. Nobody's not quite nobody's going to play Contreras because they'll be Cub stacks. Nobody's going to play Real Muto. I think you should, if for some reason you're paying down at pitcher, you got to be doing it for a specific reason. Like, I'm going to have the one guy who's actually good that nobody is playing, which would be Dahl or Real Muto. But really, with the two Coors Field catchers, Narvaez and Kirk, it's so easy to pay down a catcher. That's kind of the obvious play.
Yeah. Obviously, we're going to see quite a few people play down for these guys. Mercedes is somewhat interesting. I know he's been, he's shown us a ton of power. He's like 3,500. He's going to be going up against Paxton. Johanna Heim is a guy that I'm looking at because I really like the Texas-Toronto game today. A game that somebody just asked in chat, what's my favorite bet today? That's the game, the over in that game. I love the over. I think it was 9.5 last time I checked. It was when I wrote it up this morning. So I'm with you. If you want to pay up, nobody's paying up for catcher today. Nobody's paying up. When you see Dahl at 3% ownership, you just know nobody's really going to be paying up at catcher today. So definitely in play. Kind of moving over to first base. We were able to save a lot with first base yesterday. It was just a position that opened up and there was a ton of cheap bats. What are you looking at here for first base today?
Same thing. So almost every position is just really easy to pay down if you want to, which is, again, plays into the pay of a pitcher. You can find a spend up spot anywhere. I think Abreu is one of my favorite one-offs on the slate. Again, nobody's going to play White Sox. Alonso will be kind of popular as far as expensive guys, and I do like him a lot. But then sort of mid-tiery, I think we're both going to love Toronto. Vlad Guerrero at 44 is too cheap. CJ Cron for 37 is too cheap. You can even go dirt cheap now. Dan Vogelbach's batting second. He's $2,800. Or you can play another Toronto, Texas batting. This is going to be a theme for both of us all day. Tellez and Guzman are basically free. So you don't have to spend money anywhere you don't want to. Nate Lowe is $3,800. It's so easy to pay down.
Yeah, and Vogelbach cracked the lineup in that game. He's 2.8K on DraftKings. He's minimum salary on FanDuel, where you can play multiple first basemen. He's another guy. Throw him into the mix. Guzman, Nate Lowe, all those guys that you mentioned. Again, very very high on this Texas Toronto game. I'm hoping that game just absolutely shoots out. I think we'll see low ownership on Abreu, Rizzo, and Muncy. I will say, like, if you play on Yahoo, Rizzo is cheap. He is really cheap over there. He's like $14. And even against Peralta, I think he's super interesting. So Pete Alonso, I think, is another guy you have to consider up at the top. Anything else here for first base?
No, that pretty much covers the guys I'm looking at. I mean, there's certainly, you can play almost anyone, certainly in a stack, but as far as individual plays, that pretty much covers them.
Let's go to second base. What are you looking at here for second base?
So the sites are pretty different with their pricing. On DraftKings, it's, again, like, all these guys are just weirdly cheap. Like, Solak and Wong and Cronenworth and Hampson, Escobar and Rojas. Rojas, I don't think, is actually in the lineup today, but Escobar for Arizona. You can spend $3,000 and get a pretty good player on a pretty good lineup today. And I don't really like the spend up spots. Like Marcus Semien, sure, if you're playing Toronto stacks, you want him. But when you look at everything else everywhere, I don't think Semien and like Brandon Lau, this is not the place I want to spend up. I can find a reason to spend up at first, certainly at shortstop and outfield, but I don't really see it at second.
Yeah, Cronenworth batting leadoff again against Sanchez. Don't hate that. Spending down, we're gonna get into some plays that you can obviously spend up for on this slate. Just so we're clear. We're gonna get to that point, but you mentioned Escobar and very talented. 2020 not so great, batting six. Projected right now around 10% ownership, and I think it's super interesting that Rojas isn't in the lineup because we were projecting him as one of the better value plays on the slate. And, with him not in the lineup and Pavin Smith batting leadoff, I think a lot of people are going to be playing Smith. So that opens up, potentially playing guys like Cronenworth or Escobar here at second base. Solak, another guy that I like. And I don't hate Colton Wong either, batting leadoff in that game with very favorable weather. I think we covered it all. I don't think there's anything else that, we need to talk about. Christian Arroyo is batting leadoff, but he's facing Glass now. I think, different position, different slate, different matchup. Maybe we're talking about him more.
Yeah, he's not really on my radar here. And I think what will happen is a lot of the Rojas ownership will just move to Escobar.
Yeah, I think so too. They're very similar price too. So
right. Certainly, if someone's already made their lineup, it's $100 less, it's a really easy swap.
All right, moving over to third base. This one's interesting, just in general, because we already talked about Vlad. Really like him. Biggio is really cheap on FanDuel. I know a lot of us highlighted him in the expert survey over there for FanDuel today. Definitely love him over there. But I think this is a position that you could definitely pay up to be contrarian with Machado or Turner, or even if you want to go Kyle Seager to be very contrarian against Giolito.
Yeah, so I do love Biggio, but like you say, much better FanDuel play. I think I called him a core play on FanDuel because he's so cheap. Here, I think Machado is the guy I would really love to get. If I'm the most likely positions for me to spend are shortstop and then one of either outfield or third. So to me, it would be Machado. I would play him ahead of Bryant, ahead of Devers. Justin Turner's probably just going to be in a Dodger stack for me. Otherwise, yeah, those Toronto guys right around 4,400, 4,500, good plays. You have double Diamondbacks in the middle of the lineup, under or 4,200 down to 3,800 with Cabrera and Escobar. I think that'll be pretty popular. And then more Coors Field with McMahon. They're all just kind of a little too cheap, and it makes everything else too easy. It's almost like even after putting in two aces, you have to go out of your way to spend all your salary cap.
Yeah, it's a weird slate when it comes to that kind of stuff, and that's why we're seeing so much ownership start to shifting to Vlad and stuff, but I think I really think Machado is someone that's super interesting on this slate, because first of all, I don't think Sanchez is going to pitch deep into that game, and Machado is a guy that can hit 2 home runs off of anybody. So, a position like third base, you definitely are going to be home run hunting. Shortstop, another position that Corey Seager is just so good right now, but this is a spot, this is one of the positions I think you're paying up for on this slate because there's just so many good plays at the top today.
Yeah, and there's not the same kind of values. Like every other position, it's not that we don't want anyone expensive, it's that there's actually good cheap plays. Here it's the opposite. Especially with Rojas not in the lineup for Arizona. To me, it's Seager, Story, Lindor, Bichette. And there's a couple more guys up there too, but I love all of them. And to me, this is just definitely a spend up position. The cheap options are better at every position we've talked about. So to me, I'm playing one of these guys who's 5K on FanDuel. On DraftKings. And on FanDuel, we should just note every Blue Jays batter is just bizarrely cheap. Both their Bichette and Semien are right around 3K. Everyone's just too cheap there. But DK, this is a 5K and up position for me.
Yeah, the only guy was Isaiah Kiner from Texas. He'd be the one guy that I think he's the cheapest I think I go at shortstop today. I don't think I'd go below him because I think you're just giving up too much. Lindor, Baez, Xander, Story, Seager, all these guys are in just such great spots that it's just I'm paying up. We're
Absolutely.
Paying up at pitching and we're paying up at shortstop today.
Yep, that's clearly the build. And kind of like with pitcher, there's so many good shortstops that you don't really have to worry about ownership. It has to get spread out because there's so many of them.
Yep. All right, moving right along here. We got outfield. We have a ton of options in outfield today. I was so excited to see that you had Joey Gallo highlighted so much today. Listen, I'm all in. Give me Texas, Toronto. I'm all in on this spot. What do you like in here at outfield today?
Yeah, Joey Gallo, if he were 5K on DraftKings, he'd probably be my favorite play. It's always risky to play Gallo. He can go 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts against absolutely anyone. But that power upside is too cheap. This is a position you can go either way. It's pretty easy to make a case to pay up if you want to. I love Yelich, Harper, play the Dodgers guys. I think Bellinger's probably not going to play, but you get bets up there. But when you get down to that 4K range on DraftKings, it's really good too. Got Teoscar Hernandez and Gallo. I really like. Conforto's only 3,700 on DraftKings. You got David Peralta hitting cleanup for Arizona for 3,700. It's so, and I go on, I can name 40 guys, probably not 40, 20 guys that I like in somewhere between 3 and 4K in the outfield. Or you can go down as low as you want. You can go down to the Brewers guys. Avisel Garcia's 2,900 again. Maybe you spend up at one outfield spot, but really that mid-tier is just too good for me. So that's where I'm mostly going to be.
Yeah, Peralta, Conforto, Gallo. Those would be the guys that, if I was playing cash games, I don't play cash games in baseball anymore. Those would be the guys that I'd be looking at, to kind of build around here. I think they're just overly too cheap. And then you have Pavin Smith batting leadoff in course. Super, he's under 3K, right? He's super cheap.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I think is if he had been projected to hit leadoff at the beginning of the day, he would have been hyped up by now that he'd be 30% owned. It's kind of weird. People hadn't really heard of the guy, and he's coming in late with the lineup. So I'm not sure that he'll get super popular, but he'll probably end up more, 20% owned at least. Just it's so cheap.
The other guy that I like is the Rosarina. Really hasn't started off great. Perez's ground ball rate definitely dropped a little bit last season. He's gonna be a guy that gives up a ton of hard contact to righties. This is a good ballpark for right-handed power bats, and I think a Rosarina is going to be extremely low owned, probably less than 5% on both sides today. So Rosarina is another guy that I wanted to talk about really quick. Any interest here in the Tampa guys at all?
Yeah, so we haven't mentioned a Tampa bat yet, and really, they're reasonable as a stack. I mean, it's Martin Perez, and they've got several really good righties. Obviously, Rosarina is the main one, but I mean, yeah, played Yandy Diaz, played Rosso, played Manny Margot. I think it's a pretty reasonable, very cheap stack. But certainly, like you say, a Rosarina would be the one guy you would probably play on his own. And it's easy to afford him, even though he's kind of pricey.
Boston bullpen stinks. Like, they were bad last year. They're still bad. So if you can get into that bullpen, it's definitely a team you want to stack against. I'm trying to make sure we're not really forgetting anything as far as like outfielders go. There's so many, like you said, that you can name. We could sit here and keep naming guys. I think Dominic Smith is another guy to maybe pivot off of Joey Gallo and some of those Texas Toronto bats, in that mid range. If you're looking for some power upside against Anderson, like you said, Anderson
off Conforto on the same team, because Conforto will be popular.
Yeah, and like Anderson's average, like, decent strikeout stuff, gives up a ton of hard contact. Dom Smith's a guy that he's going to strike out a bunch, but we know he's going to hit the ball hard. Like him and JD Davis, they strike out a ton, but when they hit the ball, they hit it hard. I guess you could even throw like Pete Alonso into that conversation. Like the Mets, heart of the order, they're going to hit the ball hard when they make contact.
Yeah, the Mets are interesting. They're going to be interesting every day. I mean, that's a good team. They do have a lot of kind of boom or bust guys, but there's nothing wrong with that because they're going to get plenty of homers.
Yeah, much better lineup from top to bottom than it has been, and we didn't mention David Dahl. Got to mention him before we move on.
I figured that you would want to mention him because I know you like that game. And again,
I love
just another
that
one of
game,
these guys
Dave.
is just too cheap. Oh, I'm totally with you.
I'm not excited that like when I opened up like projected ownership and everything, like everybody was on that game, projected ownership wise. But
yeah, it's not sneaky, but you can still get over the field easily on it.
Oh, I think we're going to see cores come in higher than what we have it projected for too. I think, it's way too easy to stack cores with two top end pitchers. So, everybody loves to stack cores field too. All right. People have been asking questions throughout the show. We're going to get into those questions now. If you guys have questions, feel free to hit us up. We'll answer questions. First question is, do you have any interest in Herman Marquez as a SP2?
Not really. I mean, if you have to go that cheap, even being it's fine to play him ahead of because your other choices are like Chase Anderson or Alzolay or something. I think it's completely fine to use him if you just have to have somebody 7K or down. But I would rather not.
Yeah, like I had zero interest in him, and then like I was reading over on Scores and Odds, Kevin Roth had highlighted that game just in general as like a game that he liked the under on. Free premium content there for you guys over there on Scores and Odds. I'll give out a pick that Roth had highlighted. So,
but the big issue with him is not so much hey he's in Coors Field. It's he did not look okay in his first start. He walked 6 batters.
That's what I was gonna say. Like I know it was the Dodgers. Like all right, a little credit to the Dodgers bats and that, but I'm with you. I think if you're paying down at pitching today, just who's the cheapest guy? Like because that's what
Chase Anderson.
Like that's what it comes down to. Like if you need to get to Marquez, find $1,100 with James Paxton. Like
yeah, exactly.
I can stomach Paxton. I can't stomach Marquez. Just it suppresses strikeouts. Like, I don't know, man. I don't like playing pitchers in cores anyway, but
it's just too easy not to need him is my take on it. It's not that there's no chance he can't. If he hits midseason form and that first start was a fluke, then sure, he can still give you 15 points, which would be fine. But I don't think it's necessary.
Best bets. Any bets standing out to you today?
I don't even know what the lines are, so no.
That's the proper answer. If you don't look, then you can't have an opinion. I already said it. I really like the Texas Toronto over. It's 9.5, and I'll get out my second one today too, because that's what I do. I really like the under 8.5 strikeouts for you, Darvish. I think that line
that's
is
a big
too.
number.
Yeah, like that. I don't know if it's moved. I wrote it up earlier this morning. But with the pitches and with the Giants team just in general, I definitely take the under on that one, in my opinion. Could he get there? Sure. And I'm not going to tell you to take the under a lot on strikeout props, because usually they're too low. We already kind of talked about Mercedes, but thoughts on Mercedes was a question.
I mean, tonight's, I would play him maybe in a White Sox stack, except that I so much prefer Dahl. Now that Mercedes is up to 3,500, he's not 2K anymore. It's wonderful and exciting that, he's been doing well and I like him and it's fine. But to me, if I'm playing the White Sox, it's to be different. And then it's going to be Dahl for me.
My thing is, like, if you land in that range, I don't mind him, but like, give me like Stephen Vogt and Coors. I respect Paxton way more than most, and like, I know how talented Paxton is. I think, like, give me Vogt. The money's not going to matter. Like, you can easily play $3,500 catcher on the slate, but I like Stephen Vogt a little bit more than I like Mercedes. They want to know in chat if you have any info on Kevin Paldo.
I believe it's Podlow.
That works.
He's a Rays kid. I think this is his first major league game, if I'm not mistaken. He was like a kind of a power speed combo guy in the minors. Like his surface numbers in the minors are actually pretty exciting. But he struck out a lot and walked a lot and had power and speed. He's kind of like I don't know what he's going to be, but he looks like a fly ball hitter who's probably going to be a strikeout risk. I have no idea if they're might pinch hit him or if they're just, hey, he's in the lineup, he's going to play today. I think he's actually totally fine to take a shot on. Like when these kids come up and they're guys who can hit fly balls and have some sort of proven power, adding a little speed, I don't think it's terrible to take a stab at him. I don't know if they intend for him to stay in the game after Perez comes out or not.
Yeah, because the biggest thing that you got to kind of note when you're looking at the Rays lineup is Meadows is there waiting. So if there's a position, like if there's a spot, like I know they called him up for Kiermaier, and like he's supposed to have a good glove too, from what I was reading earlier. Raw power is a thing with him. Like, that when he was drafted by the Rockies, that's kind of why the Rockies drafted him. A lot of raw power and good wheels and stuff for the outfield, but you said it, big time strikeout risk. The last time we saw him in AAA was 2019. He had a 29% K rate. So listen, like you said, when they get called up, take shots on them. Nobody's heard of this guy, I'm sure. If you haven't been looking at it, you have no idea. Thoughts on Teoscar Hernandez today?
Love him, and he's clearly too cheap. Most of these Blue Jays, you can easily play them on their own, and you can certainly play them in a stack. Teoscar's one of the guys I'm more interested in just playing on his own because he's so, he hits a ton of home runs, but he strikes out. Yes, I love him. And not just in stacks. I think he's a guy you can play on his own too.
Yeah, definitely have him in my Toronto stack for sure. And it's just so easy to make these stacks work today, but his price is still probably too cheap. Who would you include with Yelich in a 4 or 5 man Brewer stack?
Yeah, it's a weird little lineup, and Kira's not in there today. I think if you're stacking that, I think you probably want to go ahead and play Wong, just get the leadoff hitter who's most likely going to kind of get things started. Vogelbach and Shaw are probably both pinch hit risks, but they're also the two guys other than Yelich most likely to hit a home run. So I would probably want at least one of them in. It kind of depends on what position you need. And then I would go Avisail Garcia and probably Narvaez.
Got to play the Vogelbach over Travis Shaw. Do it.
And he's $1,100 cheaper, which is very relevant.
Yeah, and like not only that, like Travis Shaw had a hole in his bat for the last 2 years. So Vogelbach.
You have not seen the hole in Vogelbach's bat. It's also pretty large.
It is large, but you know, team girth, man. Gotta play Vogelbach.
He is a large human for sure.
All right, moving on. We got questions. Keep on bringing them on. We got plenty of time. We got 10 more minutes or so before we get out of here. We'll keep answering questions. Any thoughts here? Would you rather have Kershaw or Glasnow as an SP2? If you're asking questions, try to tell us like tournaments or cash games, because I do think it's relevant when you're looking at something like this.
Yeah, that one is definitely Kershaw in a cash game, but I have a slight lean to Glasnow, especially at lower ownership in tournaments, and he is a little bit more of a strikeout guy. So give me Glasnow in tournaments, Kershaw in cash.
Yeah, nothing to add. That's exactly what I would say as well. So Narvaez or Kirk, DK GPP.
So assuming you don't have a stack of either of those teams, I would play Kirk as the one-off. Like this is a really good hitting prospect. I mean, he's only played at the very lower levels of the minors, so you never know how it's going to carry over. But like he's a potential superstar. Probably not immediately, but maybe. So I would go his way.
All right, I like it. Yeah, keep on dropping those questions. Someone was asking us, could we just touch on like our pitching again? We're both on the same page when it comes to pitching today. Like we're spending up.
Absolutely. It's so easy to do. And like we said, last night when you had one ace and he was going to be 80% owned, there's a decision to make. But tonight when there's at least 4 aces, 5 if you include Paxton, no one's going to be 80% owned and it's going to be spread out. So it just makes it easier to do it without worrying about being on the same team as everybody else.
Thoughts on a Giants stack on DraftKings? Any interest here in the Giants?
So, I mean, honestly, no, but like if I'm doing 150 lineups, I might have 2 Giant stacks just in case, because Darvish, if he's off, he can give up a couple home runs. But just looking at the slate as a whole, I don't see a need to pick on any of the 4 aces just because of how good everyone else is.
Doesn't make a ton of sense. Like you can get contrarian on this slate, and like you could get contrarian with the other side of this game. Like the Padres, as talented as the Padres are, like their overall stack is going to be less than 5% owned today, because they are kind of expensive. But the thing is, like they have some cheap bats in that lineup. Like Kim is in the lineup today. He's 2,700, and like Aaron Sanchez is a guy that can walk people in bunches. So like if you want to get contrarian, go to the talented Padres and just hope that like their talent shows up today.
Yeah, neither the Padres or the Dodgers are going to be chalky. So you don't need to go as sneaky as like Giants or Mariners or one of these teams. Like you're already playing a low-owned team with, even without Tatis, the Padres are still one of the best lineups in the league.
Somebody just asked us like what our thoughts on the Padres stack. Like I do think they're somewhat interesting today. I don't know if I get into like playing them in like single entry or like a 3-entry max, but they're definitely a team. Like if you're running even like a 20-entry max build, you could potentially land up on them today just to be different. DK GPP, biggest hitting chalk you're fading. All right, let's pull up good old fashioned projected ownership here. I know Devin's, listening along. Maybe he'll pull it up and show you guys as well. The top 5 owned hitters today. Oh, this is obvious. Let me refresh really quick because Rojas is still in here. I don't know if it's been refreshed or not.
It has, yeah.
So let's pull it up. We'll refresh. All right. So top 5 is Yelich, Gallo, Navarez, Hernandez, and Avisail Garcia are the 5 highest owned. I know which guy I'm fading in this group. What are you looking at?
So to me, the 2 fades outside of stacks are Narvaez and Garcia. Like if I'm playing a guy outside of a stack and he's popular, I want to think he can hit 2 home runs. And those are the 2 guys that I don't expect 2 home runs out of.
Yeah, that's the exact thoughts for me as well. Like, yeah, like I think Yelich is another guy you could potentially fade. He's projected to be the highest owned hitter on the slate, and he's been struggling too, and like he really hasn't shown up over the last couple of years. So I think he's another guy that you could potentially fade at the top. Let's see. These questions are good questions. Getting good questions today. Who would be our top 3 bats in a Padres with Tatis out now? Are we obviously playing? Well, obviously we're playing Machado, Cronenworth, and Hosmer? Question mark. Or would you go different? I think if you're, I'll let you give your thoughts, but I think if you're stacking the Padres, you're probably going to have those 3 guys in there.
Yeah, so Machado is the definite. I would probably go Cronenworth too. And then next, it's close enough between Pham, Hosmer, and Myers that I would kind of go around what positions you have left elsewhere. I probably have a slight lean to Will Myers. Feel like he's got a little kind of the most raw power and probably would be the least owned. Like I think Hosmer, Pham, it's so easy to go 1 through 4. I think that would be a little more popular, but really around Machado and Cronenworth, it would be more based on what positions you need to fill.
We appreciate you too, Jeremy F. We appreciate you too. I'm glad that you're enjoying the show. Jackie Bradley Jr., or David Dahl, DK GPP for the most monies. You already know what I'm going to say.
I do. They're both really good plays, and they're both going to be kind of owned, certainly within stacks, but they can't be that owned outside of stacks because there's just so many outfielders. I'm going to lean to the Bradley side, but I love them both.
Listen, you play JBJ, some fun games in Boston for sure, but I'm all on board David Dahl and this team today. So, any Cubs stacks? Any interest in the Cubs here? Like, I definitely like them on Yahoo. Like, they're one of the cheaper stacks on Yahoo. But even on DraftKings, I don't mind the stack here.
Yeah, I like that they're a little too expensive. Like compared to the rest of the slate on DraftKings, they feel a little overpriced, but that only means nobody's going to play them. And Peralta, as good as he is when he's on, he can throw 4 innings and be done, or he can get a little wild. You already mentioned the ump might not help him. Yes, I do like a Cubs stack.
Yeah, same thoughts. Any thoughts on a 4-2-2 lineup? 4 Toronto, 2 Colorado, 2 Texas. I don't have anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I don't think you have to full on double stack. I think that would be fine.
Trying to get all these questions in before we get out of here. What do you cap ownership in the lineup builder on an average for baseball? I hand build a lot of my teams because I only play 3 entry max. Do you mess around with that setting when you're building baseball teams?
Well, I do it player by player. Like I don't set it for the whole player pool. Like
yeah,
I set a max percentage on 80 different players. Just generally speaking, it's a low number for hitters and a high number for pitchers. There's not a correct answer to that, but I do go individuals and not just the whole pool.
Yeah, I do that with NASCAR. I build 150 teams with NASCAR, and I set every single min-max for every driver, and it's way easier because there's only 40 potential plays in NASCAR. How much exposure do we have to cores tonight? Like, I've already said it. I played 3 entry max, so like I have 1 stack of that game, and then a couple pieces, I think, on the other 2 teams. But I think cores is fine. I think they're way too cheap.
Yeah, I think you got to play some of them in cash, just because of the pricing. They are not my highest owned stacks by any means. They're probably like 4th and 5th. I have some, but not a ton. Like I like other spots every bit as much.
Do we like Conforto? Yeah, I definitely like Conforto on DraftKings. I think that he's way underpriced for the matchup for sure. Favorite FanDuel cash stacks? See, I haven't played cash for baseball since 2019. Didn't play it last year with all the pandemic stuff and baseball in general. But I don't think this is a slate, and I know you play a lot more cash games, but I don't think this is a slate you necessarily need to stack in cash games, especially on FanDuel.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way I view it, I don't ever intentionally stack in cash. Like, I'm just going the best player at every position that I can afford. If I end up with a stack, because that's what the slate is, it's fine. But I would never say, who am I stacking in cash? Based on where the salaries are, the team I think you're most likely to end up with 3 or 4 guys from is Toronto. And if you did end up with that, I think it's fine. But, basically Toronto, Arizona, and Colorado are going to have some cash game pieces.
All right, we have 2 more questions, and then we're going to get out of here. Favorite Rockies to stack on DraftKings?
I think you definitely just go Story, Blackman, Crone. And then, again, that's kind of like the Padres question at that point. What positions do you need? I would lean towards going lower with McMahon and Hilliard and Nunez rather than going up top with Tapia and Hampson. But really, they're all affordable, and so it's going to depend on your positions. But I would start with Story, Blackman, Crone.
Yes. Yeah, like Hampson's a guy you can throw in there. If you want to stack a catcher for 2,900, you could throw in Nunez. You could play the back end of the stack with like Hilliard. Bunch of different ways that you can do that as well. Devin, I have a green screen. I just refuse to use it. I do what I want. Final question. Any interest in Solano on DraftKings for tournaments?
Honestly, no.
I had to look up. I'm not going to lie. I had to look up to see who he even plays for at this time.
Well, what's weird is they're putting him in the middle of the lineup, the Giants.
But he's facing Darvish.
Right, exactly. So to me, it's not necessary tonight. But I mean, it's still like we see it in baseball. Like some random team, one of these teams who's facing the Aces is going to have 6 runs tonight. It's just how it works. But I don't see it as being necessary.
All right, before we get out of here for Roth, Meansy, and STL to take you guys home for crunch time, favorite stack cheese. Who's gonna bring home the bread for your cheese tonight?
I see what you're doing. Toronto.
Well, if you take Toronto, then I got to take Texas.
Exactly.
I really hope that game just kind of shoots out and we get a lot of runs. But hope you guys appreciated and enjoyed the show. It's been a ton of fun. It's always great talking baseball with Cheese. Thank you guys for the questions. It's always fun. Make sure you guys subscribe and like over there on YouTube. That way you can get this content as soon as it pops up and all the other videos that we're doing. We're doing a ton of stuff with the Masters, so make sure you guys are checking that out as well. He is Dave. I am Steve. Good luck, everyone, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow.